country who face structural racism, including barriers to sexual and reproductive freedom and healthcare. Today, our purpose is to build a world in which every person, regardless of race, income, insurance, gender identity, sexual orientation, abilities, or immigration status, can receive expert, compassionate healthcare, education, and information without shame or judgment. Our goal is to continue to improve and expand healthcare and education for those we serve. To do so, we are owning our organization's history, and we are committed to addressing the implicit bias and structural racism that continues to exist within our organization and communities today. In addition, we'd like to take this time to do a land acknowledgement, to just recognize and acknowledge the Indigenous people of the land that we are all on. So if one of my team members can drop in the chat that link, the nativeland.ca, it's a really awesome link. You can click on it and actually type in your address, and it'll tell you which native land you're on. And if you want to drop your name, what native land you're on, and your pronouns in the chat, that'd be awesome. While land acknowledgement is not enough, it is an important social justice and decolonial practice that promotes Indigenous visibility. And it's a reminder that we are on settled Indigenous land. So let this land acknowledgement be an opening for all of us to contemplate a way to join in decolonial and Indigenous movements for sovereignty and self-determination. So with that, with those acknowledgements, we wanted to take some time this evening and ground this event in the national conversation that's happening right now around the Tulsa race massacre, the original Black Wall Street. So we'll cue a short informational video right now for y'all.
Black Wall Street. By now, you've probably already heard of it and have an idea of what Black Wall Street was in America at the turn of the 19th century. HBO even made a fictional superhero series about it. If you aren't aware, here's a quick history lesson. After slaves were freed in 1863, Black Americans quickly proved to be faster learners than their slave masters thought they would be, even after intentionally being deprived of formally educating themselves for the previous 200 years. By 1920, one place in particular was widely known as the Mecca for Black excellence. Think Atlanta, Georgia today. That place was Tulsa, Oklahoma. There were Black millionaires across the country like Mary Ellen Pleasant and Madam C.J. Walker. But Tulsa essentially became the birthplace of African-American entrepreneurship.
Black Wall Street is in many ways a misnomer, because what the business community in the Greenwood District, the Black community in Tulsa, was more like, would be a Black Main Street. These were mostly small businesses. So there were movie theaters, and dance halls, and barber shops, and grocery stores, and restaurants, and service providers like doctors and lawyers and pharmacists and dentists, hotels, all manner of businesses that you might find on an American Main Street, concentrated in a segregated Black enclave in Tulsa. Black Wall Street, the Greenwood District, was also a community of necessity. There wouldn't have been a need for a separate Black economic island in Tulsa had it not been for Jim Crow segregation. So they created their own economy, in part, across the Frisco tracks, separated from downtown by those tracks.
Eventually, things quickly changed. By this time, the KKK was also quickly gaining prominence, particularly in the South. And of course, we're not happy. After 2 days, the Mecca of Black entrepreneurship became the center of destruction. But most, unfortunately, did not see it that way.
The community was rebuilt after that to a substantial degree, peaking in the 1940s, early to mid 1940s, with well over 200 documented Black-owned and operated businesses. But then there was a second devastation. This was not a devastation affected through violence, but rather through policy.
Black people lost their fortunes and even family members and were never able to recover. Last summer, Forbes estimated that the Stratford Hotel alone, owned by O.W. Gurley, was worth about $75,000 at the time, which would be $2.5 million today. And that's just one building. Imagine how much money that was lost. This month, there will probably be plenty of media outlets re-educating us about the events that happened in Tulsa. But we gotta take things one step further, because the new Black Wall Street is here, and it's here to stay. Across the country, Black women have become the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. In Tulsa today, the rebuilding has also begun. But the new Black Wall Street is no longer concentrated in one location. It's spread out across America. Forbes The Culture is taking a real look at businesses and entrepreneurs that make up this new era of Black Wall Street, and defining what it is and what it means to be a part of an unprecedented number of Black movers and shakers in nearly every city in America.
Thank you so much for watching the video with us, and again, joining us in this space. Just wanted to give folks a minute to breathe a little bit, process this information, because I know many of the images of violence and hatred that we witnessed are really heavy to watch for many folks on the call. So wanted to give some folks a minute to breathe. So just coming back here again and just recentering us a little bit for our conversation. And if you all need more time to breathe and ground yourself, feel free to take some time, take some space as we continue this conversation. And as we heard in the video, the redevelopment efforts, Jim Crow policies, and continued gentrification violently changed the landscape of so many of these affluent all Black neighborhoods and forcibly pushed Black communities out, which led to consequences felt until this day and has only been amplified during this pandemic. And just to put things in perspective, while there are more than 2 million Black-owned businesses in the United States today, 440,000 Black-owned businesses, or 41% of the pre-COVID-19 numbers, are closing their businesses, some permanently, as opposed to 17% of white-owned businesses. So as Taylor mentioned earlier in the welcoming, we're here to really reflect on the way institutionalized racist systems and infrastructures have created barriers for success and power in Black communities, and learn and work with each other to commit to supporting Black-owned businesses right here in our very own neighborhoods. So tonight, we are going to be hearing from a powerful lineup of community organizers and business owners who are joining us from West Virginia, South Carolina, and where I rep it really hard, North Carolina. I forgot to mention this, but my name is Layla. I am the Muslim Organizing Program Specialist, and I'm based in North Carolina. I'm not gonna take too much space, any more space than I've already had. And I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to our first speaker, who is a local West Virginia organizer, Takaya Smith, to kick us off. Takaya, I'm handing you the mic. Are you here?
Hi, thank you all so much. I am here. I'm very happy to be here with you all today and share this moment as we reflect on our history. My name is Takaya Smith, and I am a youth and racial justice organizer in West Virginia. I want to give a shout out to Miss Ixia for inviting me on this call today. It's great to have her in our realm. Right now, as we are getting ready to honor our history of Juneteenth, it's important not only that we look back, but we look to the future as well. But it is important that we hold
Takaya, I don't think I can hear you anymore. I think I may be able to hear some background noise now. Okay, I think I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry about that. So West Virginia is one of the most difficult places in the entire country to exist. We are constantly making headlines for Black trauma and Black suffering. What I encourage young people to do is to get involved in the systems that impact our daily lives. Right now, especially on the federal level, we have the For the People Act, which is federal legislation that can remedy all these attempts of voter suppression that mimic the Jim Crow era. This is important because we cannot achieve economic security as a people or as a movement if our votes are suppressed and we're not represented the way that we should be or the way that our values should be. West Virginia was created and the Black migration in West Virginia was created out of economic opportunity. Black people came to West Virginia to be able to thrive in the coal industry, and even in such a dangerous industry, we were still pushed to the bottom. At one time, Black communities and poor communities, white rural communities in West Virginia came together to fight the systems that wanted to hold our people down and working people down and anyone who didn't fit in the small bubble that we now call the 1%. I will continue to encourage that same kind of unity and encourage everyone to reflect and never forget what Juneteenth is about, and never forget the power that existed and that still exists within us today. And I just want to again say it's so beautiful to have this space, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone. Thanks to all.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know I did not know much except from Ixia about West Virginia. Thank you so much for the work you do in the Black community and just being here. I think that it's really good to see the work that's being done like all our country. I'll introduce myself really quick. My name's Asia. I'm also in North Carolina. I'm Western North Carolina field organizer with Planned Parenthood South Atlantic. And I am going to take the opportunity now to introduce our small business owner, Latoya Smith, to give a little background about their business.
Okay. Hi, thank you. I just want to thank you all for inviting me and having this space, this opportunity to speak about some changes that happened since my business actually launched. I went through two major life-changing events. One was getting reconstructive surgery from Poland syndrome, and two, actually, I'm no longer a Smith, I'm a Jones, and I actually got out of a physically abusive relationship. And this has been an awakening for me and for my business. And As It Should Be's business mission and vision changed, because my healing and my vision and outreaching as many women and women of color became the top priority. Self-care and mental health and wellness and sensuality and sexuality has to be part of our self-care, especially in the Black community, and we don't have enough of that. And that's why I had to change my whole mission and vision. Was no longer eco-friendly. It's no longer eco-friendly skincare line, even though we do have eco-friendly practices. It's more of a self-care and healing and body positivity, because we as women of color, especially living in West Virginia, we don't have that space to have that. And that's another reason why I'm expanding, and I want to make a self-care and healing center, a safe space, especially for women of color, to come, to heal, to regroup. The whole thing about this is something that we don't generally like talk about, and I'm just gonna say it because it needs to be said. My goal is to normalize empowering women, along with getting rid of that narrative, the toxic narrative of the strong Black woman. We need help. We need to normalize self-care for ourselves. We need to normalize mental health. We need to normalize taking care of ourselves. We do so much, and society thinks that we're going to be the saving grace. No, we're tired, baby. We're tired. We're tired. And I hope that in West Virginia, this starts a movement. I hope that As It Should Be starts a movement, not only just for women, but women of color, to our take back our power, to speak up, normalize speaking up about abuse, because we want to like hide our abuse. And I'm pretty sure that, I mean, we don't have to really tell it, but I'm pretty sure we heard the phrase, what happens in this house stays in this house, in our Black community. And sometimes what happens in that house is abuse, and we need to be healed from it, especially women. We need to be healed from it. We need to be allowed to be in our femininity. We need to be allowed to be leaders. We need to be allowed to be healthy. And that's what As It Should Be's new mission and new vision is going to be in West Virginia. Right now, it's hard to get people to back up, because it's something so fresh and so new, and it's in West Virginia of all places. It's in West Virginia. I'm laughing because I know the uphill climb I'm going to have. But it's something that is definitely needed. And it's definitely, I know it's going to be definitely welcomed when it's built, and the energy of the women that are behind me is like powerful. The allies, the women of color, the indigenous women, it's just like powerful. And I just love the new mission and vision. And I'm so happy that and grateful that I was invited onto this platform to share that, because being alone in a domestic violence situation, feeling embarrassed, feeling used, feeling confused, feeling lost, no woman, no woman should feel that way. And no woman of color should have to repeat that narrative saying, I'm a strong Black woman, I can handle this. No. That's toxic. We need to be able to move forward and be able to heal and make healthy decisions with our relationships, with our businesses, with our careers, and with our families. And as it should be, that's what we're going to be doing from here on out. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, so much, so much for sharing that. Your strength, your drive, your passion. I feel like everyone just reading the chat and just seeing everyone just relate to what you're saying and just feel it through the video. And I'm going to highlight what Layla said in the chat. Like, I sense some cross-state solidarity as well. If you're all the way in West Virginia and us here in North Carolina, I'm sure in other parts of our affiliate, people are viewing it right now and just feeling like how this is needed and just the importance of like uplifting this in our community. So thank you so much for sharing that. And now I'm going to transition to our next business owner. We have Ray Glim, who's actually the owner of Get Fit Juice and Shakes, Fourth and Goal, and Scores Bar and Grill. So if you're here right there.
Thank you for having me. Quite the honor. I appreciate the opportunity for sure. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Yeah. My name's Ray Glimp. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, originally moved to West Virginia about 10, 11 years ago. All humble beginnings. I came here, I had no money in my pocket. I had about 75 cents. Today, I am the 2017 NAACP Champion of Change, 2020 Business of the Year recipient, West Virginia 40 under 40. I've managed, owned, operated over 20 businesses locally and out of state, including Carolinas as well. Small business leader in hiring minorities. I've even been featured in Latoya's magazine, great magazine. Not sure if you're still operating. In joining this, I kind of thought, what would be my main talking point? I think today, we should define what success is. I think that's pretty important in the Black community, is to understand what success is. Some people always ask me, Ray, how are you successful? And one of the biggest keys I equate, number one, success isn't equal to wealth. Wealth equals some type of freedom, but success is not equal wealth. Okay. There are three things that I always look at when people ask me about success. One is community. I always strive for community first. I've operated many businesses prior to becoming, I guess, famous or well-known. My most successful businesses, however, have been helping people in the community. For one, West Virginia is the unhealthiest state in America. So we opened health and wellness juice bars, juice and fitness bars. Those have been some of my most successful businesses. Real estate, I've dove into real estate, helping those who are less fortunate, low-income housing. It has been one of my most successful businesses. So whenever you look at it, I've had the most impact whenever I want to do something for the community. So I always start with community first. Next, education. The biggest amount of lives I touch have been from educating, using the tools that you've been handed, the knowledge that you've been handed to educate. African proverb says, when a man dies, a library is burnt. So I always look at that as what I have as a library, and I encourage people to reach out to me in my community for education. As speaking, especially on the Black community, most of us don't know how to, get our business in order. I heard that fact of 41% of Black businesses will be closing, and I wonder what the percentage of Black businesses that actually had their paperwork in order. The government handed out money this year. But I know many businesses and associates who didn't have their paperwork straight. Many businesses who are still Black-owned businesses who are still waiting because they didn't have their paperwork in order, or they didn't want to find an accountant or get a good attorney. And these are things that we need to do from the beginning. So making sure that whenever we open a business or whatever we dive into, that we do it correctly. Let's stop taking shortcuts as a community. Let's do it 100%. And that will help us get to that next level. Number three would be network. Success is your network. How many people you're going to touch. I'm part of a business group, and the biggest saying is givers gain. I'm not out here to really get anything from here. The biggest part is, what can I give for you? Some of the most successful business leaders ask, how can I help you? I'm sure many people have been around other business leaders and they've tried to put their card into your hand. Well, you usually don't remember that guy. You remember the person that has taken an interest in you and your business. So let's make sure that we make sure that we strongly network with whoever we meet. A lot of times too in the Black community, I see that crabs in a barrel mentality where, we got the stiff eyes, or we feel like we got to be tough. but you never know. I've made relationships and networks that I've worked 10 years, 15 years, and ran into these people, and we've been able to network, and it's been great. Making sure that, opportunity, always opening your eyes to opportunity, weighing out the pros and cons of everything. Sometimes if you hear it might be too good to be true, maybe it is. But being aware that certain things may have a great opportunity for you. So success, I look at success more in legacy standards. What are you gonna leave behind? So whenever you define success, I define it as my legacy. How many lives I've touched, whether it be in a community, how many people I've educated, how many people I've networked. I appreciate you guys having me, and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Ray. I just want to say, I feel like through just listening to you talk that someone put in the chat, I think Molly, community and entrepreneurship. And I can see through you talking that you're a true servant leader, just giving you this platform here to share about your business. And you just shared so many keys and gems with us. So I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you to all of our West Virginia speakers that have spoke so far. I'm now going to transition it to Layla to introduce our speakers from North Carolina now.
Thank you, Asia. Hey again, y'all. That was so inspiring to hear from all of you. And I feel like if anyone has to say anything about West Virginia to me, all I have to say is that it's in good hands. It's in really good hands. Y'all are doing really powerful work. And I just feel so grateful and honored to be in this space and to hear from you and to learn more about the work that you do and the businesses that y'all are running. So thank you so much. So before we transition into the speakers who will be talking about the beautiful state of North Carolina, I wanted to talk a little bit about Durham's Wall Street, Durham's Black Wall Street. And if you visit Paris Street today, you'll see hotels, new apartments, and some corner grocery stores, like a lot of other cities where we're seeing a lot of gentrification and redevelopment efforts. And this landscape looks a lot different from the once affluent community that was a central hub for diverse Black-owned businesses across 4 city blocks in downtown Durham, which is also known as Black Wall Street or Little Haiti, or the Little Haiti District. And for me personally, when I think about that and reflect about that, a lot of what has informed my framework on racial and economic justice and organizing is through what I've learned about Black Muslim history in North Carolina and how it has shaped change in our state. I wanted to take a moment to uplift the work and history of Arazek Mosque on Chapel Hill Road in Durham specifically, which congregates the oldest Muslim community in the state. So it congregates one of the oldest Muslim communities in the state. And it was through this history that I learned about Durham's Black Wall Street for the first time ever. I didn't learn about it in public school, at my faith space, or even at home. And as you can see in this picture on this slide, the masjid was visited by prominent leaders and change makers like James Baldwin, who's pictured here, and Muhammad Ali, who I heard stories about dining at Shabazz restaurant, which was Arazek's restaurant, and even staying with the founding family of the masjid. And Arazek, which was formerly associated with the Nation of Islam and formerly known as Mosque Number 34, opened its doors by Mr. Kenneth Muhammad and Sister Margaret Muhammad on one of the blocks that housed Durham's wealthiest Black neighborhoods. And at the time, the masjid really struggled, like many other institutions and businesses, from the construction of the Durham Freeway that really served as a gentrification project that sliced through the neighborhood and forcefully pushed out Black communities. And so members of Arazek Mosque created community safety teams, direct services such as cleanup squads. They organized music and cultural nights, and they opened up a bakery and a restaurant to build relationships and to build stronger communities. And so the mosque didn't just serve as a place of worship, but a space for healing, of community building and advocacy. And its establishment and resistance really created a launch pad for continued organized Muslim spiritual spaces across the state. It allowed for folks like myself who are immigrants and my family and our friends to be able to congregate and create spaces of our own. And so there are a little over 50,000 Muslims who live in North Carolina now. And in the Triangle area alone, which houses, which anchors the cities of Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, there are about 19 masjids already in this area. So this is a little bit about the beautiful history that I've learned about Arazek through the years, and it definitely doesn't end here. And I encourage you to learn more about Arazek and hear from the leaders from this community tell this history and tell their stories. And I'll drop some resources in the chat for you to visit. But before I do that, I'll go ahead and invite one of my good friends, sister and Chef Jazz, to share more about her business, Pleasing Palates.
Peace be unto you, family, and thank you, Layla, for inviting me to share in this beautiful occasion. And I just absolutely enjoyed and absorbed everything from our state of West Virginia. Did not realize what was happening there. Thank you so much. And especially you, Brother Ray, when you talked about shortcuts, that was me. I have been cooking since I was 9 years old. And it's not just a passion, but it's a gift. Whenever I'm in the kitchen, God just takes over my hands. I create recipes, and my company is called Pleasing Palate. And I would just cook for joy, and it took me a while, and still developing the business aspect of it, because people would love my food, but not want to compensate because I'm a giver. And I would just do things. And so my son just said, Mom, he said, you got to stop taking shortcuts. You got to do it. So finally, I got my LLC, and it's growing. I'm a personal gourmet chef. One of my specialties is incorporating the navy bean into desserts and dishes, because it's a protein. The navy bean has several medicinal properties. It helps decrease diabetes. It helps the risk of heart failure. It has dietary fiber and folate and magnesium. It's high in thiamine, which is B2. It was called the navy bean. It was named the navy bean because it boosts your immune system. And when the sailors in the Navy got sick, that's what they ingested. And because of the medical benefit, they named it the navy bean. Well, my bean pie, I would say is peerless. I've created a honey bean cake, and my daughter-in-law told me that you need to call that honey bean cake because it tastes like a honey bun. But I don't know if anyone else has made a bean cake, but I have done a bean cake. I've also done chipotle navy bean empanadas, lentil navy jerk rice balls, spring salad, and tossed with navy beans that have been marinated in balsamic vinaigrette, a variety of bean soups, tacos, burritos, and the list goes on and on. Of course, the bean burger. But also, I cook halal because I'm Muslim. I use organic products. I don't cook swine at all. I try to, represent who I am. And just hopefully, because there's a kind of a void, I think, in serving the community that needs halal food. So I pride myself on that. We call our business Pleasing Palate because that is our precedent. It's our precedent to please the palate. And love is the secret ingredient in everything that we prepare. So our slogan is Taste the Love. We do all types of events. We do I just did a graduation party. We did, I guess since COVID kind of subsided, but we did do family reunions, weddings, birthday parties, personal, like two, one and two, a dinner for two, I guess that's what you would say. I do those also. And I'm a traveling chef. So if a person has a kitchen and they're willing to pay for my services, I'm more than willing to come to your city. I have traveled as far as Rochester to do an event, but mostly locally, as far as locally in North Carolina, I mostly stay in the state of North Carolina, Charlotte, Winston-Salem, Greensboro. I've been to those cities. And of course, Durham. Durham is like right around the corner. I live in Raleigh, so Durham is right around the corner. But that is what I do. And there was something else someone said I wanted to comment on earlier. I'm sorry. Oh, no, that's okay. But that's all I wanted to share. But thank you so much, Layla, for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Chef Jazz. I know I am hungry now looking at those pictures and just hearing you talk about your food and your services. And I will be definitely using your services to try your food. Also, I think that was just really inspiring to hear you talking about how it's a passion of yours and how you're really just working in that passion and that gift. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit.
Yeah.
Really
And
appreciate
thank you for letting me get through my trepidation.
You're fine. Thank you. I am now going to pass it on to Livy, our next business owner. Livy is the owner of Live, Breathe, Birth. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself now.
Hi, I'm Olivia or Liv, and I am the owner of Live Breathe Birth. It is a full spectrum birth business. And so I'm basically a doula or a birth worker. I help people through reproductive events and provide inclusive support. I got into this work because I've had 3 traumatic births myself and pregnancy. As we all know, there's a gestational crisis, especially for marginalized genders and marginalized, ethnicities and races where we really don't get heard or taken care of how we're supposed to in this industry. And so my job as a doula is to come in and advocate where needed and empower my clients to advocate for themselves, giving evidence-based information. I specifically try to work with marginalized bodies because they are the ones that need it most. I noticed the need for more non-binary direction in this mentor which is Mystique. I apologize, I got a call. My mentor, which is Mystique Hargrove, is also queer. And so we both focus on that community when it comes to doing our work. I also recently added lactation services since I'm doing my training for that. So I'm really proud of that in the work that I do and helping make a difference because it really does save lives. I think it would have made a difference if I had someone there advocating for me when I couldn't do so myself because I was too sick. And of course, it's only right that we talk about reproductive rights in a Planned Parenthood event, especially when it comes to Black bodies. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing the amazing, important, necessary work that you do. And that, I'm gonna now pass it on to Allison. Are you here, Allison? There you go.
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see and hear you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. I am here to introduce the person who is going to introduce the speaker from South Carolina. So I'm pleased to introduce my friend. I could call him friend, teacher, mentor, but I'll just call him friend tonight. Brett Bursey, who continues to be a force in organizing in South Carolina and is the director of the South Carolina Progressive Network. The Progressive Network's premier program is called the Majeska Simpkins School. I am a graduate of last year's class, and this school was launched in 2015 to teach South Carolinians the history of their state that's often glossed over or left out of school textbooks. Majeska Simpkins was a legendary human rights activist, and the school offers a forum for citizens of all ages to learn about the history of their state in the context of race, gender, economic inequality, and sexual orientation. All of these struggles have played a role and continue to play a role in shaping South Carolina as it is today. Brett has been doing grassroots organizing in South Carolina since he was the state traveler for the Southern Student Organizing Committee in 1968 and 1969. And then Brett, in turn, will introduce our South Carolina speaker, who I'm excited and grateful to have with us this evening. All right, so Brett, I'm gonna highlight.
Thank you, Allison. And I want to put out a couple of things that are different than what people have been talking about. And this is the repression of Black wealth for a real particular purpose. We actually just had an interesting introduction to a new economic and political theory that a book just written on capitalism developing in Charleston, South Carolina, before the country was a country, and that the wealthy plantation owners made an offer to buy all of the material goods made by the enslaved people. And they thought that was great, except that they then controlled the economy and had more control over the people that they enslaved. And you kind of follow that forward, and there was just this terribly deep and long history that we saw in 1921 and what happened in Oklahoma. That in 1921, Victory Savings Bank was started, and Allison spoke of my mentor, Majeska Simpkins. Majeska's family started the bank the year that the Tulsa massacre happened, and that bank, as were other banks, Black-owned banks, were real lifelines for people that couldn't get loans from the white banks, and that Victory was one of the few banks that made it through the Depression. And in the 40s and 50s, when civil rights activism was cranking up, people that signed petitions to make lawsuits, the one that became Brown versus the Board started in Columbia, South Carolina in 1948. And the people that signed that legal petition that brought the lawsuit, Thurgood Marshall was the attorney, they had their business refused when a farmer would try and buy grain. They wouldn't sell him grain, and people that had landlords, the landlords would throw them out. And so that Black bank, the Victory Savings Bank, was actually a very, very critical defensive mechanism that allowed people to speak out. And Majeska, being of wealth, had more leeway than most people to raise hell. And so tonight I'm going to introduce Dr. James Monroe, who I call him Jimmy, was the vice president for operations at Victory Savings Bank after a period of teaching at Benedict College, which is HBCU here in Columbia, that Majeska actually went to kindergarten through college there and graduated in 1921. But Dr. Monroe had experience in teaching photojournalism at Benedict and is now a photojournalist of quite some fame and a Majeska School graduate. Dr. Monroe, unmute yourself and speak up.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here. Did I unmute? Can you hear me?
You did. Would you care to, I hear you got a dog in the background. Would you care to be on video?
I don't mind. How do I do that?
There should be a little button at the bottom.
Oh, I see it. To start video.
That's right.
Okay, I guess that did it. Yo, there I am.
There he is.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I've known Brett since he was running around behind Majeska, and we've just been friends for years. But getting back to the Black Wall Street and getting back to things that are germane to the topic, I guess. My mother was from Tulsa, and she lived through that. So my mother's from Oklahoma. I'm from Kansas, as you can probably tell by my t-shirt here. But working at Victory Savings Bank was kind of an enlightenment for me, primarily because I grew up in the Midwest and things were a little bit different. And I came to South Carolina from Kansas City or Wichita, Kansas, and to work at Benedict, primarily because as an academician, I had not had the Black college experience. And so I came to work at Benedict. I subsequently married Dr. Monteith's daughter. Dr. Monteith was the president of Victory Savings Bank. And somehow I had banking experience in Kansas, so it wasn't like I went to work and I was doing something that I wasn't qualified to do, although I was president's son-in-law. That's neither here nor there. But Victory was kind of an enlightenment for me, primarily because I had never seen Black banks, and although there was Dime Savings Bank in New York, and there were Black banks all up and down the Eastern Seaboard, but the main thing that working at Victory and seeing people come into Victory empowered to not so much know that they were going to get the loan, because you still had to qualify for the loan. But the thing is, it to see people come in. I met people that I probably never would have met, primarily because I was at Victory. I was something you euphemistically call the vice president of operations, and that allowed me to work with loans, work with federal funds, work with things that we in the Black community don't see. And until you see things like that, you see that this can happen. And Victory survived the Depression. It was one of the few Black small banks that survived the Depression. So I'm happy for the experience that I had. I had some good experience. I had some bad experiences. We foreclosed on people's homes. We did a lot of things that large banks do. But the thing is, I think we were there as a safety valve. And I've always thought that had maybe we had a little more support from the community, because sometimes we kind of look down at Black businesses, and we don't support them the way we do. We talk about supporting them. We talk about doing a lot of things that we should do innately. But sometimes when it's a difference between going one place and doing business someplace else, and talking one thing and doing something else, we probably could be a little more supportive of our Black businesses. Like the brother was saying earlier, sometimes we don't get our paperwork done. We don't do the things that we should do to manifest a situation that allows us to be successful. So I take my hat off to the Monteith family, and there was a lot of good done, and Victory will always have a special place in my heart, because Aunt Majeska was kind of always with me, and I was a lot younger than Majeska, and I had to get used to Majeska calling me Mr. Monroe or Dr. Monroe, and I still have not issues with Dr. Monroe, but it's more important to my kids and my family than it really is to me. But I just want to thank you all. I hope I've offered some kind of insight into to a business that you know, we have a lot of people in entertainment. We have a lot of people in sports. We have a lot, and they're making a lot of money, and they're doing a lot of things. But the grassroots kinds of things like banking and businesses like that who actually make a difference in people's everyday lives. I go to a basketball game, I come back home, and I'm happy because we won, or sad because we lost. But that doesn't change my everyday existence. Black banking can change people's everyday lives. It can be the difference between survival and not surviving. And no matter how much Wells Fargo and Chase and all the larger banks talk about equity or equality, it's it's the small Black banks that invest in the community, that really invest in the community, and because they've got an investment and they want to protect their investment. But the point is that I feel fortunate to have done that. I'm an educator by profession, a photographer by profession, and but the time that I worked at Victory, I think I worked there 2 or 3 years, and went back to the university because that's where I was most comfortable, where I am most comfortable. But I also worked at the University of South Carolina as their director of student development services. So I've had an opportunity to, as Benedict, our motto at Benedict was to be a power for good in society, and I think that Victory was powerful, and in its new orientation or its new name and so on and administration, I think it still has its feet deeply rooted in the Black community. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Brett uh, for inviting me. I hope I stayed on topic, but you know, I didn't live the Tulsa thing, but we talked about it in our family because my mother lived it, and so it wasn't news to me now that the majority of us know that it happened. No, I've known that it's happened for most of my life, but please support your Black businesses. That is going to be the difference. We talk about community. We talk about serving the community. We talk a lot about serving community and doing things. We talk about it, but we sometimes fall short in supporting those entrepreneurial efforts. So if you didn't get anything from what I have tried to say, is that, you know, we need to be more proactive rather than reactive, because when you react into things, you just bobbing and weaving and parrying and thrusting. When you're proactive, you're making things happen. So thank you, Brett, and everyone. I appreciate it. I appreciate being here, and carry on. Have a good one.
Thank you. And we'll all have to get lunch together sometime here in Columbia.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I'll just say I can listen to you talk forever. I feel like Dr. Monroe, thank you so much. You provided so much insight and so much history, so much inspiration. So we really do appreciate you for taking time out to speak to us today and share your experiences. And yeah, it was great. And you definitely were on topic. And we just really enjoyed listening to you talk and share. So now I'm going to transition, excuse me, to our last business owner in South Carolina, is Miss Belinda Miller here for Turning Page Bookshop.
Hi, how are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm the owner of Turning Page Bookshop in Goose Creek, South Carolina. And I'm the only Black-owned bookstore in the state, but I heard recently, and I'm excited about this, that a young lady plans on opening up a Black-owned bookstore in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So I'm very happy for her. So that's okay, I'm not the only one in there, that's fine. That's a good thing. We don't sell just Black books. We sell everything. Excuse me for a second. Somebody's trying to get my attention, my dog. Move out the way. We were having a lot of events when I first opened up in June of 2019. You know, Rona showed up. She showed herself out and we shut down and I was able to come back up. And this is now June and it's still slow. I don't expect things to come back to normal quite yet. I know it's going to be a little while, and I know people are doing baby steps. When they're shopping, they're being extra careful. So what I'm trying to do is turn my store into more of a community center, as well as a bookstore. I'm also adding in toys and games. I've asked the teenagers what kind of games do they want, as long as it's appropriate. I am not going to have no gangbangers and all of that in the store. Because the majority of my customers are white. I'm in Goose Creek and I'm in South Carolina, but that doesn't mean I have a huge African-American customer base. That's okay too, because I can introduce the whites all kinds of books. That's why I said my store has a little bit of everything. And I've liked a little bit of everything. In August, I will be opening up my second store in Somerville. And I didn't think that was possible because trying to get funding and from so many places, it's still very, very hard. I think I applied for the last count was 128 grants. And I received 2. The Goose Creek Economic Development offered me a loan. And I'm just not into loans. I hated to take that loan. I rather had closed down than to take a loan, because when you take a loan, it's just another bill. It's another bill to pay. And to have another bill hanging on your head, and sales are not great. And you know, rents go up every year like they should. And then to top it off, the air conditioner in my store went out last week. Had somebody to come around, 2 people to come around and give me some estimates, because the landlord is not paying for it according to the lease. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to get some little air conditioners to go around the store, because I'm not giving them no $6,000. But they ain't getting that from me. But as a business owner and a Black business owner, the funding, I think, is still a big, big problem. Whether you're a Black business owner or I don't care what your race is, getting funding is still difficult. The SBA was very nice and generous to a point last year. I work for the federal government and I still have my full-time job. And I know the federal government, they like to play games every day. So trying to get an SBA loan, using that EIDL, I always get that same excuse. I'm not in a poor neighborhood and I don't qualify because I'm not in a rural area and all this kind of stuff. And I have always gone back to them saying, have you been to South Carolina lately? This is not DC and I'm from DC. So I run into these roadblocks and these brick walls as a small business owner. But like the discussion we're having on Planned Parenthood, I'm not going to give up, and I don't want those young ladies to give up. I don't want nobody to ever give up just because somebody wants to throw a brick in your face, just because somebody want to throw a brick or the negativeness that comes for what you want to do, especially when you know it's right. I can see if you're being a douchebag about it. But when you're doing it right and you're doing it for the right reason and you want to help people, I'm not opening up my business to become a millionaire. I knew that going in. I have a job, you know. I'm trying to hire people, and I'm trying to hire them where they can afford to pay the rents, but the rents keep going up. It's hard to hire, and that's why we have so many businesses that can't hire nobody. You want to pay somebody $10 an hour? That's going to buy them a Starbucks coffee, because in another year, that's just how high that coffee is going to be. And then to have bad coffee, oh, that's some bad coffee. They still ain't figured out how to make that right. They used to, but they ain't figured it out. I'll get off my tangent right now. It's hard being a small business owner, and it's hard to find funding. And I still tell people, if you can, please do not borrow money. Because when you borrow money and everything is fine for a month, next month, you still got to pay the rent. You still got to pay payroll, the electric, the phone, the internet. Something else will break. You know, the fire marshal will come and say, you need this. The landlord will come and say, we're not going to fix the window, or we're not going to fix the door. You know, you got to have a couple of months expenses put aside somewhere, even in your own. If you do it in your personal life, you have to do it with your business. And that's one of the reasons I became a SCORE mentor, to help people who want to open up a small business. You know, do not believe the Instagram, Facebook's pictures. Oh, I have a business and I'm doing so great. Stop lying, because you're lying. It's difficult. And especially in 21, because we're still coming out of it. And people coming to my store and said, look, the back of your book says $30. I cannot afford $30. I said, I don't sell the book for $30. I know what the publishers are doing. I know what Amazon is doing. I do. I'm gonna sell it to you for 15. Yes, I'm not gonna make a lot of money, but can I pay the rent and payroll? Can I at least keep the doors open? You know, sometimes you have to give a little to get a lot back. And I always feel that God has blesses me every day. Even when I fall on my face, I just go to him and say, okay, what do you want me to do today? It's hard to run a business. It's hard to be involved in Planned Parenthood. I mean, that's been a struggle for centuries. I still don't understand why some people just don't get it, but they will get it when it hits them. It always hits them, and they think it's not going to hit me. Oh, it will. It's called karma. And that comes back every single time. So for small business owners, just don't give up. I know it hurts. I know it's a struggle. I know you get headaches, and I know you want to pick up that bottle of gin, because there have been times I picked that bottle of gin up and put a little orange juice. Don't take with orange juice. It doesn't take good. It hurts, but get on your knees, pray, and get back up and try again the next morning. Thank you. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you to all our speakers. The cities we learned about today are a launch pad for entrepreneurial magic, and where Black-led businesses and startups are making a mark in the city and building generational wealth for Black communities and fostering and nurturing stronger communities overall. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So before the night ends, I do want to give folks a chance. Oh, I didn't even introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Ixia Vega. I am the field organizer for Planned Parenthood South Atlantic in West Virginia. So I'm Team West Virginia over here, but everyone was great. But before we let y'all go for the night, I wanted to ask a couple of folks some questions, because we did have someone in the Q&A. And if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A or in the chat, whichever works for you. But we have one question, a question for the bookstore owner. Belinda, are you doing online orders? If so, oh, I think Taylor already put the link. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
And then someone also asked what the favorite Black-owned businesses were for some folks that were not already mentioned. So we had someone say the Zen Succulent in Raleigh is amazing. Does anybody else have one that they love that wasn't able to be here tonight, but you still want to highlight and make sure that they're brought up? The floor is yours.
Mahogany Books in DC, that husband and wife team, they were doing online for years. So, and they opened up a store in DC, and she said that it was hard, but they kept their faith, and they were both working full time until they said, okay, we're gonna do it for a year and then we're gonna start. And they're opening up their second store in National Harbor. They had a good presence online, so they know how to do the virtual and everything else when the pandemic started. But I think they're one of the best bookstores, especially by a Black-owned family. And there's another one in New York, and of course I can't remember the name right now. But they kept their faith and they kept going. Even when things were hard, they continue to thrive. There's a lot of the Lit Bar in the Bronx, the Cafe Conta. I know I'm saying that name wrong. There's a lot of bookstores that I think would do well in this arena right now, because they've gone. I've only been in business for a few years. They've been doing it a lot longer than I have, and I think they have found the pill.
Thank you for sharing. And I know some folks in the chat are saying the Raleigh Black Farmers Market, Durham Black Farmers Market, and some other places on here, y'all. But if you think of any more, please put them in the chat, because we'd love to, support some folks. But we want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we appreciate you supporting us and your community, and to ensure that we're supporting the folks we saw tonight, and to ensure that we're doing our part. We have a couple of asks for you. So one is building generational wealth for one is support your Black owned businesses that are near your area, not just during Juneteenth, but throughout the entire year. It's important that we are supporting the ones in our area and making sure that they know that we have their back, and that we will make sure that we are supporting the way so we can build up BIPOC communities and Black communities. Supporting BIPOC-led organizations and groups that are working from an economic and racial justice framework, working to expand the rights and access for local small businesses, and working to protect workers' rights and labor rights. Another one is stay up to date on PPSAT programming and events, including our Black organizing program and our Muslim organizing program constituency work. And to make sure that you are not missing any information about either of our programs or PPSAT in general, I have put in the chat where you can sign up to be a volunteer and to get more information about us. Be sure to look up for our follow-up email that will contain several more businesses that, near you that were not able to come tonight, but we do have them highlighted on there. And feel free to share that with your friends, share that on your personal networks, and make sure that you just check those out. And we also have a recording available of this event for folks that will also be in that follow-up email. So you can share it with folks who weren't able to make it today, use it for your own business, or just rewatch it because you had a blast tonight. So I really want to thank you all for taking the time. I know your time is valuable. Y'all are busy, so I appreciate you sharing the stories of your businesses and about yourself and about the history that we're learning about today. And I hope you all have a safe and fabulous night. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to stick around and ask them in the chat. I'll stay on for a couple of minutes to make sure that everything is fine. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night, and thank you again for sharing your voices and your truth.
Thank you so very, very much.
You're amazing. I'm coming to see you this weekend.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monroe. I'm sure we will see each other soon. I'm based in Columbia. Yes.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Yay, we did.
Saying I could do debrief.
Is the recording finished now or no?
No, it's not. I see it. It's still happening.